Hey there, I'm Kirsten Karchmer and I'm the CEO and founder of Brazen. And this is the first video of a series that I'm going to be doing called the Building of a Brazen World. All the time at Brazen, we're building technology, we're building solutions to improve the lives of people with periods, around menstrual problems, around PMS, cramping, around polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, a whole host of other conditions that impact the way that people with periods live their life and actually end up having access to power. But that's not what this is about. This is about the back-end journey of what it takes to build a company that can transform the way that we relate with health. And that's our mission at Brazen. Each time I'm going to be just discussing what's going on in the building of Brazen. I'm going to start off at the beginning to give you a sense of sort of where this all started, where we're going, and how we're going to try to get there, and all the trials and tribulations in between. If we go back to the very beginning, when I was about 19 years old, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I couldn't really walk without a cane. I was doing the Korean Special Forces training though, because I was trying to be as tough and as strong as I could as a semi-disabled person who used a cane. And I ended up going to an acupuncturist. So I laid there and this small doctor came in and very gently started feeling my pulse, and he said, "Oh, you're so tired. You cannot digest food." And this was true. I was having like watery diarrhea every single day, 10 times a day. And I thought, okay, that's close. And then he keeps feeling and he says, "Do you have muscle weakness?" And I was like, fuck me, I can't believe this. How did this guy figure this out? And so I said, "Yes, actually I have multiple sclerosis." And he starts clapping. He's like, makes perfect sense. And I thought, this is a load of crap. He said, "Here's the deal. When you were born, your constitution or your body was incredibly strong, but your disease was very weak. You were born with multiple sclerosis. So it's like this." And he said, "But then you're this workaholic. So as a competitive gymnast and as a competitive tennis player, and I worked. And he said, around 18 years old, you worked all the life out of your body. Now your disease is stronger than your constitution." He said, "Our job is to now look at everything you're doing and make your constitution stronger than your disease. And actually, if we're able to do that, we can help you to go under remission, hopefully. Can't promise you anything, but this is the strategic plan that we're going to do." I was sold in that moment. I was a linguistics professor. I was teaching research methodologies to international students, and I immediately became enamored with traditional Chinese medicine. I started reading everything I could. I became obsessed with the menstrual cycle, ended up going to acupuncture college. And during that time, I was studying like crazy every single piece of the menstrual cycle, from the color of the blood, to the viscosity of the blood, to the length of the bleeding, to the time between cycles, to what ovulation looks like. Is there pain? What are the exact symptoms of PMS? There's almost 40 symptoms of PMS. How do all of those tie together to actually, instead of being discrete symptoms, how do they tie together to perform an ecosystem that represents how healthy or not healthy we are? And that was my obsession for almost 20 years of clinical practice. So I became a reproductive acupuncturist. I worked with well over 10,000 women. I trained many of the reproductive acupuncturists across this country. I traveled all over the world training reproductive acupuncturists in the technologies that I had developed. About 5 years ago, I was in a conference and they were talking about the epidemiology of fertility. And they said, 7 million women can't get pregnant, and I already knew that. But what I didn't know, this is again 2013, that actually what had happened was that there were 7 million women who couldn't conceive, but there were only 100,000 who got in vitro fertilization in the US that year. And there were only 1,000 board certified reproductive endocrinologists, which are the kinds of doctors that you have to be to do in vitro fertilization. And I was amazed. And I thought, all this time I've been so incredibly proud of the fact that I had helped more than 10,000 women with either their menstrual cycle or their fertility. And suddenly that number seemed irrelevant. It seems so small, like that's all I did for 20 years. That means that 6.9 million infertile women are without resources. And so I started my first company called Conceivable, which was an effort to translate everything that I learned about real integrative medicine. What does it look like when you borrow the best of Chinese medicine, the best of Western medicine, the best of behavior science, of nutrition, of mind, body? Where is the intersection of all of those in which we can potentiate the outcomes of people's health 1,000-fold? And using software, can we do it at really a fraction of the cost? We're actually really successful at building software that could do that. In fact, women in our pilot program increased their natural likelihood of conception in the hardest group, 35 to 41, 274% in 3 months. But then something really important happened that leads us finally to this long story of how we got to Brazen. Was I wrote an article for Goop magazine called What Your Period Can Tell You About Your Health, and ended up being one of the most performant articles on the magazine at the time of publication. What happened was so many women started reaching out to me saying, look, I'm 26 years old, I don't want to get pregnant, I'm not even in a relationship, but I do need your help. I heard you know how to fix periods. I'm really fucking sick every single month for my period. I'm passing out, I'm throwing up from pain, and there's no resources that can help me. Can you help me? And I literally got hundreds of these emails in a very short period of time. And I had this moment of like, holy crap, how can we be in the middle of a women's movement? How can we be standing up and marching and trying to advocate for us having access to power and dignity and resources when the research shows that more than 80% of women had significant and life-interrupting menstrual cramps and PMS every single month? And I thought, that's over 82 million women. We're in the middle of a women's movement and no one is talking about this. And more importantly, no one is doing anything about it. And that made me sick. Sick because for 20 years, actually, I knew exactly what to do about it. I just didn't have all the pieces to put together. And so I decided to start Brazen. I called it Brazen even after many months of going round and round with Leslie Ziegler and my co-founder Rob Krasowski and many other incredibly smart friends on this journey of all the different names. This is not a period company. This is a company that we're building to actually liberate women. Being someone who is still struggles with chronic illness, it is a gating factor for how much access to power that we have for ourselves. And the more that we can liberate ourselves from the problems around our health and the habits that are keeping those in place, the more that we have access to power, and even more important than access to our own power, what I'm interested in is when we get our health back and we understand the levers of our health and how they impact our health, and we have agency around it, suddenly we have the resources to help to uplift other women. And that's where we transform the whole planet. And that's what we're doing at Brazen. And so in the end, we ended up calling it Brazen for one very specific reason. I saw an informal definition of Brazen that said, Brazen means to overcome something shameful with swagger. And I said, fuck yeah, that's what we're calling this company, because that's amazing. Because if 80 million women are sick and suffering every single month from their period, and no one's talking about it, there's a huge element of shame that has to get broken down in order for us to do the work that we needed to do. And I wanted to give myself permission to be as brazen and as crazy as possible. And so thank you for being here today. And every day or every time something's happening, I'm gonna just share with you everything that's happening as we're building Brazen. We're building it for you, and I want you to be part of this journey. I wanna hear your comments and your feedback. I wanna know what you're thinking. I wanna know, what do you think about the work that we're doing, and how can we help, and how can you help? Because we have a huge mission. Because when we unleash all of those people with periods who have been limited every single month of their period, everything is possible. So thanks again.